Let's Talk Call-In Radio. This is Let's Talk, getting to the root causes of the important issues of the day. This on-the-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or 8317. That's 415-663-8492 or 8317. And joining me in the studio today, Shelley Rugg.
Hello.
And Stephen Hurwitz.
Hello. Heidi, is that, yeah, Heidi Ho?
Heidi Ho.
And so, yes, please do call in, after I tell you about the subject, of course. But when you call in and hear the phone ringing, hang on. You'll hear a little noise as I put you in the system, and then wait until you hear me say, you're on the air, and then give us your first name. And please, keep the language clean on the air.
Does that count for us, too?
Oh, yes.
It counts double for us.
If not more so. So today, interestingly enough, we're talking about forced family separation.
Oh, no.
Of immigrants at the border. And within an hour of sending out the email and posting it on Facebook, what the topic of the show was going to be, President Trump signed the order.
The power.
It was you, Paul.
that no one, that they're not going to separate children from their families anymore.
Because of those, those nasty Democrats, what they did.
We shall get into this, what the actual ramifications of what he signed are. Pretty nebulous at the moment. It turns out they just want to keep whole families in detention. And they'll do that for 20 days, and then after that, nobody knows what's going to happen. And nobody knows what's going to happen to the 2,000-odd children who have been detained since.
We know what's going to happen.
In the past 6 or 7 weeks.
They aren't going to be grandfathered in, is what I heard.
Right. Oh, they aren't? They're not going to stick around? But the system, they're given a number, and if the parents don't know the number, and then they get deported, and the kids are still here, it's just this awful thing.
It's
Plus
really
the fact that they lost 1,500 kids
already
from last year, before it even went into effect.
It's really too horrific to even try to imagine what they're going through.
Yeah, as a mother.
Yes.
How would that be? Good heavens. Well,
what about the dads? Had to rip one of them out of his arms.
Yes, that terrible track that I'm actually going to play as the lead-out music. Instead, it'll be that lovely child screaming for her papa.
Oh. There was a woman sitting outside the hardware store as I was walking here today, sitting in a rocking camp chair, and she exclaimed, oh, shoot, I lost my...
lady outside the store?
Yeah, well, it was an expression, and I've lost it.
We'll give you 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll have to come back to it. But the point was about how, usually... oh, shoot, I'll have to come back to it. That's so silly.
Anyway, she was talking about the kids or the border?
You'll know when I remember it. Otherwise, it's sort of silly to try to
Because
explain it.
there is a lady who is parking her van on the, what would that be, C Street, I guess, and always erects a canvas sign on her camper van overnight. And this one is about comparing Nazi Germany with present-day America. So.
Does she put a different sign every day?
I'm not sure, I've only seen it a couple of times, and I forget what the first one was. When
I'm a little troubled by that, comparing this to Nazi Germany.
Uh-huh.
Well, it trivializes what the Nazis really did. They did so much more than separating children.
Well, it had to start somewhere, though, Stephen.
Yeah, they started out talking about how gypsies were infesting our land, and Jews, of course, and everyone else.
Yeah, we're hearing the same language.
Trump used that language.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
What did he call
Amazing.
that?
He said, infesting. Immigrants are infesting our country.
Yes.
Well, he's keeping his promises. We can't say he isn't.
And, of course, it's the countries that are sending them here.
Not their best. They're not sending us their best.
Oh, God.
It's not a really subject to joke about.
Can we laugh? I know.
It really
it's just
is.
awful.
As a parent, I just can't imagine. Well, the death of a child is one thing, and it's in the order of things. Though, having a child, losing a child is one thing, but having this child torn from your arms in front of you, and the child being taken away into this darkness of the bureaucracy, to me, that's it doesn't get much worse.
Right. So now he supposedly has said that, he hated to see children being taken away from their parents. So that's why he signed the order yesterday to rescind that they have to be kept with their parents in the detention center. And let's not forget, it's not even just people coming up here looking for work. It's not migrant workers and that. It's they're really refugees. And
right. They're running for their lives.
From Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala, where gangs from L.A., there's the big drug-dealing gangs that are creating so much violence down there right now, started in L.A., and they went down there to kind of organize the... Ooh,
we got a caller.
Lights are flashing. No, it's just the lights flashing.
Oh, really?
Oh.
It's hard to imagine that a mother and her child...
It's God, I'm sure.
...is a danger to society.
Well, they're a danger to our land because they will infest us with something.
I would be really curious if we would get a caller who believes that this system is a good thing.
Well, so here's the thing: why was that? Why this zero tolerance policy in the first place, which is what created this whole thing? Because the law, as it stands, does not allow children in federal prisons, and they are, instead of sending them to detention centers and letting them stay together, the law says if you cross illegally, you are committing a federal misdemeanor. And
imagine that. It's
a federal misdemeanor.
Yeah, it's like a parking offense.
But children are not allowed in the same federal prison
for
institutions.
20 days. They're allowed to be with their family for 20 days.
As children are. They're not allowed to be in there according to the law, as I understand it. I could be wrong on that. So
I heard the same thing.
Was this a ploy just to make it so horrendous that finally Congress will actually do some immigration? Or is it just to hold them hostage so he gets his wall?
I think that's it, in my own opinion. But you know what's interesting? I was just looking some things up that... if you look at Republicans themselves, where is it here? They're a margin of 20. Republican voters support Trump's policy of child detention by a margin of 20 points.
Yeah.
So we really, this isn't something that's overwhelming. I have my own thoughts about why this is the change, but I think it's... personally, I think it's the evangelicals that are coming in. And let's see, another one indicated Americans oppose the child separation policy by an overwhelming margin of more than 2-1. A majority of Republicans supported the policy.
Well, and we have a caller. So, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please? And please keep the language clean.
Summer.
Hello.
Hello. This is Summer, because today is a free day of summer.
Samir. Summer.
Yes.
Okay. Summer. It's the first day of summer. Yes. Happy solstice, everybody.
Okay. I was just listening, and there's very, very touching topic.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody needs a mental health, it is a first person who is doing all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And separate the child from the parent, it is a criminal.
Yeah.
And it's scary because you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, what happened with the Holocaust.
Right.
Separate the kids, take it to the science hospital. Mm-hmm. And these little kids, they were piggies. And the tests and all the experiments they've been doing it. Yep. And my question is, what is going to happen to these kids? On one hand. And the other hand, how much is costing to the nation to given the care, primary care for these kids that being separate from the parents? I mean, if they leave and the parents and the child are let go, for any reason they come to this state or the United States, they have a power. I mean, no power. It's the very needed.
Right.
Needed to be away from the worst situation, and they come in and it's collapse.
Right.
Awful. It's all I can say.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
That is. It is. And it's making worse to separate them.
Right.
Let them be, and they will not cause much problem. The money that we all put in to
well, you know, part of the money situation, I think we lost you, but you know, they've built detention centers, and this is our you know, justice system is privatized,
privately run.
So that means there's incentive for them to gather people up and put them in there, so somebody makes money.
Yep.
It's really sick.
That is.
It's terrible.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much, Summer.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, the number is 415-663-8492 or 8317 if the other line.
Well, there's another.
Go ahead. No,
well,
maybe you'll remember.
I'm changing
what it
the
was
subject a little bit.
Well, so can I just say, you mentioned the Holocaust and Nazis and all that, and separating families and doing experimentation on children. Lawsuit alleges immigrant children were forcibly injected with psychiatric drugs. Oh. A new lawsuit claims that children held at Shiloh Treatment Center in Texas, a government contractor, that's a private corporation, folks, making money from jailing people, they would not be children were told they wouldn't be released to relatives until they submitted to the drugs.
Oh.
The lawsuit also alleges that children were told the drugs were vitamins. Yep.
Oh. When was this?
This is right now. This is June 20th. This article was yesterday. So the lawsuit was filed yesterday or the day before. And we have another caller. Hi, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
Hi, this is Gail.
Hey, Gail.
Hi there.
Happy summer.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to confirm that last one. It just seems impossible. But I can believe it's impossible.
Private detention center, kids are screaming, what are you going to do? You're not under any, nobody. It's very difficult to get into these detention centers, of course, as we've seen. Even elected representatives weren't allowed to enter the one in Texas. And, who's overseeing this? Nobody's overseeing it. They're government contracts, so they can basically do what they like. Keep them quiet.
Yes. Okay. So here's a point that I haven't heard brought up, and I think it's an important part of the conversation. Part of the reason that I believe that there is either, as much approval as there is from the base, as they say, or let's see, or well, just why there isn't more collective outrage is that when I hear Trump speaking, he has honed a very careful argument in favor of this policy. He has this drumbeat that he's got now for himself and for the rest of the party, and that they are all starting to repeat that this is, that we're using everything on the books to control this completely out of control immigration problem, and that it's the fault of Democrats for not being willing to compromise. And yet I haven't heard a Democrat, a liberal, a progressive, or anyone making a comparable argument saying there is not been an attempt to compromise. We're not even allowed in the room or at the table to have a conversation about this. These children are being held hostage. This has nothing to do with a fair or balanced immigration policy. They are literally holding these. ISIS holds children, uses children to protect themselves, and puts them in danger for their own ideologic beliefs. And really, Trump is doing exactly the same thing. But I think that the problem with the Democrats is that they haven't created a story, haven't created a path for people to really see more accurately, this political machination. This is showmanship. This is what Trump has, taken control of the conversation, and Democrats have done nothing but complain that it's so sad and it's so terrible, but they haven't done a thing to really explain the political implications of it and the whole, the backstory, basically, so that people could informed, if nothing else.
You mentioned story, and I think what's interesting is the story has shifted. Trump came back in all his glory from Korea, the Korean talks there in Singapore, and all of a sudden, things changed dramatically.
Well, I read an article saying that he thought he was it was written by a White House reporter who's around him all the time. He thought it was going to be a slam dunk, like his Kaepernick thing, the NFL players not taking a knee at the national anthem. He thought he was just going to get through the roof adulation for this because, who cares about migrant children, really, right? Turns out a lot of people did, even some in his own party, although most of them, they say, this is a terrible thing, but it's the law.
It's hard when you have a sociopathic government.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gail, are you leaving us?
Yeah, I think she hung up.
Really? Thank you, Gail.
I think what's interesting also is this process whereby you have early critics and you have, for the most part, people keep their mouths shut, and then slowly people see which way the wind's blowing, and they want to be in on. No one wants to be left out in terms of the evangelicals have been one. The question is why weren't people, especially the Republican Party, why weren't they protesting from the very beginning?
Well, there were some. There were voices. I think that was maybe a Republican representative who was trying to get into one of the centers. I don't know. Why isn't there more? The outcry was pretty huge.
I'm just asking about this process. It's a wheel turning, and it just slowly and picks up momentum. But all of a sudden, you've got the evangelicals discovering how horrible it is.
They came out against it?
Well, from what I've read, there have been groups of evangelicals who have been complaining the whole time. But for the most part, it's been a process. They have not complained. They still support Trump.
Sure.
But, of course, this is horrendous.
Trump is only human. He makes mistakes, too. Let him change his mistakes. And
this isn't the American way, by the way.
And United Methodists, because Pence is our vice president is a Methodist. And so I think 25 or 30 Methodist ministers wrote a letter to him saying how much they abhor this thing. But now it's changed. Now everything's fine because he's signed this old children must not be separated. Here's a kind of inflammatory thing here, but we must be clear. The executive order Trump signed today is a trap. It will allow for the indefinite detention of families in order for the White House to challenge a 1997 law that limits such detentions to 20 days. Perhaps the plan all along was to detain entire families indefinitely in camps and call it humane.
Another piece
that would be very clever, wouldn't it?
It also sounds expensive.
Well, it's expensive, but, actually last year, a group of prison companies asked Trump to actually asked him to do something like this so that they could build more detention centers, so they could make more money off immigrant detention. And sure enough, within 6 months he signs that, we have, what's it called? No mercy at the border. Yeah,
the Democrats are responsible for this because the legislation that's been put forward has been tied to building the wall. Mm-hmm. So since the Democrats won't come across the aisle and vote for this because of the wall, then it's their fault. I think that's so. This wall somehow seems to be connected. The wall seems to be connected.
He wants the wall,
and it's using people who are already broken and breaking them doubly hard, just for the drama, just for the show.
Think of what they've all been
through. The
It's
manipulation.
not like they actually chose to leave their... I mean, they did choose, in a way, but they were kind of forced out, mostly because they're in danger of being killed or their children being kidnapped and forced to join gangs. And if they don't, they kill them.
It's pretty bad.
There's the subject that I was going to bring up also, that I have read articles that tie to this whole picture about the whole human trafficking situation.
Including children,
yes.
Some of the ones that were lost. They don't know where they went. They don't know where they ended up. And there was actually a documentary, right, about 6 of them who ended up at some chicken farm somewhere. Slave conditions.
When you hear a statement, they don't know where they went, they represents people.
Yeah.
Who you would think should be held responsible for such a huge mistake.
Yeah. Well, you do have to qualify it a little bit. When they say they don't know where they are, that is really an administrative they and not knowing. From what I read, many of them are with family members who took custody of these children. I think that...
not the ones that went missing, though. Although some of them may be,
the ones that went missing.
But the family members
they're not hiding under a rock.
Well, it doesn't sound like they have very good administrative skills.
Yes.
That's a big bureaucracy. People slip through the net,
I don't want to sit here and,
You shouldn't be put into a position of responsibility for human life. If you can't
not be able to
keep
track. Yes, that's correct. Right. That's correct. It might all be unnecessary. I was reading this. Although there have been a spike in the number of asylum seekers in recent months, the overall number of undocumented immigrants coming into the United States from Mexico and other Latin American countries is significantly lower than it was a decade ago.
Yeah.
It's all drama.
Yeah. No, it's just picking on a certain demographic who,
can't defend themselves,
who don't speak English well, who look a little different from Trump.
Well, Obama had his own policy.
Thank goodness for that.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, who's, all the Vikings are in charge again. And
it's not that things weren't happening under Obama, though. Obama wasn't so, this is not something that all of a sudden started.
He increased deportations by huge amounts, yeah.
The difference that he made was that, first of all, he didn't separate families.
Right.
And he allowed people released pending their hearing.
Right.
So that's significantly better.
And a huge number, 98 more than 98% of them actually showed up for the hearings. It wasn't like they all disappeared, right? So this is the picture that the current administration would like to paint, is that they were just released into the waters of America.
Well, Stephen, you were talking about, aren't there more people up in arms and doing something about it? And I think some people are, but I think that part of the problem that we're all up against is that there's so many things to be up in arms about and trying to do something about. And it's all part of the whole drama show,
It's all good for ratings, right? Everyone's talking about Trump. Here we are talking about Trump.
Andy Warhol said that everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame. Well, I think that's the same thing with world outrage. Right now, everyone's focusing on this.
Sure.
And how long will it be?
Sure.
I picked up a couple of other things that I thought were very interesting. And the evangelicals, again, are coming out. And someone said, we declare that any form of nativism, mismanagement, or exploitation is inconsistent with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Who is saying this? It's not Pat Robertson for sure. It's not
Billy Graham's son.
Billy Graham's son
finally,
right.
came out.
Yeah. And we did get an email from Murray, as we often do, and part of it is about Stephen Miller, who wrote a lot of this immigration policy, by the way, Stephen Miller. Ooh. He says, before changing his position on splitting families, the president spoke to a group of business leaders who applauded the zero-tolerance policy. Who are those business leaders? We need to know their names and the names of their organizations so that we can avoid doing business with them. So there's something. There's some research for people to do, and, if you can. I'm sure the Koch brothers were in there somewhere,
Oh, let's not talk about their up to.
They're not cages, they're security enclosures. I love that.
I went to summer camp. No summer camp.
This ain't no summer camp. Yeah. It's awful thing. What,
I remembered the thing.
Yeah. Good. Leading into the house.
So, the normal phrase is, I died and went to heaven. And so as the woman is sitting in front of the hardware store, rocking in the rocking camping chair, and she says, I lived and went to heaven. And what occurred to me was the people that we're talking about today who lived and went to hell. That, they were running from something really, really awful.
Yeah.
Running for their lives, and then to land in this situation is just like the worst nightmare.
Well, so maybe that's the question. One of the questions for the next half hour is, what do you think about immigration in general? Is it time to stop allowing immigration? Who do we keep out?
And how do we distinguish between immigration and refugees?
Well, as our Attorney General said, we don't have to look after everyone who's having a hard time, something like that. I'm paraphrasing.
Well, you asked that question, though. You asked that question.
But this is KWMR. Hold that thought. This is KWMR 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, 92.3 FM in the San Geronimo Valley, streaming live at all times at kwmr.org and cablecasting locally on Horizon Cable. Channel 47, and KWMR is supported by listener members and by Marin Agricultural Land Trust, a member-supported non-profit organization working to preserve Marin County farmland, on the web at malt.org. That's MALT.org. And support for KWMR is also provided by the Point Reyes Light, an independent and locally owned newspaper telling West Marin's stories since 1948, featuring award-winning reporting, essays, opinions, a community events calendar, and the sheriff's calls. Office and newsroom open Monday through Thursday in downtown Inverness. Subscription, classifieds, calendar, and advertising information, plus letter to the editor forms are available at ptreyslight.com. That's PTREYES light.com, or at 415-669-1200. And we're also supported by Susan Hayes, a purveyor of local and American-made artisan clothing. And Susan Hayes supports KWMR, offering hand-loomed wraps, scarves, and sweaters made in Point Reyes Station, as well as American-made and fair trade clothing and jewelry. Open daily at 4th and B Street in Point Reyes Station in the Tamales Bay Foods building. Online at SusanHayesHandwovens.com. Thank you to all our underwriters. This is Let's Talk. I'm Paul Raffel, here with Shelley Rugg, Stephen Hurwitz.
Howdy.
And the number to call, we're talking about immigration policy in general now, and it was going to be about separation of families by ICE and others. So if you have any thoughts, experiences, opinions, gripes, or support for this, for whatever is happening down there on the border, give us a call, won't you? 415-663-8492 or 8317. And please remember, keep it clean. Keep the language clean on the air.
Paul, you were asking about immigration in general, and correct me if I'm wrong, listeners. But from what I remember reading, is that immigration is kind of neutral at the moment. As many people are leaving the country as are entering. I think it was 200,000 a year. So really, immigration isn't that much of a problem. We're not talking about immigration. We're talking about asylum seekers, which is a different story. Immigration is kind of neutral at the moment.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it has to do with jobs. It fluctuates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So asylum seekers, so most of these are people running away and seeking refuge from unbearable conditions in their countries.
We have an
especially in
obligation
Central
to
America.
take them, by the way.
We do?
Yes.
Ah.
Who says that?
I did just now.
Okay.
No, that-
Stephen,
Did you see my lips moving?
save the world.
I don't have it in front of me to quote or...
But yeah, what about give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be
Oh,
free?
those poets. You know, those bleeding
Really,
heart
it was-
poets.
Yeah, really.
No, human decency. And always being a land that welcomed the...
When I was a kid, I thought that's
such
where I
people,
lived.
the huddled masses.
You know, I thought I lived in that America.
And are we not still in that America? Or
Well, I think that what's happening is not the American way, as some people are saying. This isn't the way America does things, which so that brings up the American way.
But it
There
seems
are so
like
many
there's
things that we do.
some people that wish this was how America does things.
If we're going to talk about children
And
ripped from their mother's
they
arms,
call
slavery
Trump
is
a strong
certainly
leader.
Certainly, one example. Children sold on the sold. I mean, they're just a commodity, really. They were, and then of course what we did to the American Indians in terms of sending children to the schools that essentially was trying to deculturalization, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we have a long history, as do most, European-based cultures of doing terrible things to other people. And certainly the land of the free is no better than that, yes. Except that we have historically been the place where immigrants come to, or asylum seekers. Mm-hmm. Because it was let's put it this way. Okay. Just as we used to cut down redwoods because we knew the forests were big enough they'd last forever, we'd never use them all up. And just as we used water and now electricity because we know it's always there and it will never go away because this is a huge country and there's always more. Well, it turns out that isn't the case. Maybe it's time to rethink our welcoming ways with people from other countries.
We thought it's
not that simple actually to become an get a green card or, I mean, a visa is easy enough, but if you're not Muslim, if you have not ever had a criminal record, all that sort of stuff, but actually getting a green card is a pretty difficult thing.
Well,
and seeking asylum is not just, hi, you want asylum? Yes, please. Okay, come on in. It's not. Nothing is that simple.
World War II,
Right.
we had a ship of Jews fleeing Nazi Germany.
Yes.
Were rejected here, and Canada rejected them, by the way.
Canada too?
And
Cuba did, I know.
And they had nowhere to go, so they went back home.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can call that home, but they went back.
Yep. Had to go
Well,
back.
you know, I used to live in Long Beach, California, and Long Beach has the largest Cambodian population outside of Cambodia, which is really interesting. But you know,
Food's good,
a lot of people were fleeing Cambodia,
Sure.
you know, at one point, and a lot of them ended up there.
No, we have a long history. I mean, all of us here, well, not me, but I mean, Stephen, Jews, European
history.
Jews, Russian Jews coming here. Shelley,
Escaping, by the way, it was an
Who knows?
escape,
Escaping, yeah.
not, they didn't just say, oh, let's go to America.
The Italian population, huge
Right.
Italian, Irish population, all coming over here because of economics, because they were forced, in Ireland's case, they were forced off the land by the wealthy, and the peasant classes
Yeah,
were destroyed and sent to cities where they were basically slaves, and they thought this was the place to come. And has that changed? Is there the infrastructure? Is there the industry anymore in the States to support more immigration? I don't know. But as you say, it's kind of balancing out. People are leaving at the same rate as they're coming in.
In terms of immigration.
Right, and so then the story that's being put out is that it's rampant and horrible and out of control.
Sure.
Yes.
Again, making drama and manipulating.
Oh, it's awful. It's terrible rhetoric, and saying that all of them are rapists and murderers, as he did, long ago, back before he was president. And still that stuff is going on, as if they're the criminals. It turns out undocumented immigrants are some of the lowest have the lowest instance of criminality compared with who? Us, American citizens, right? Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
no, it's just rhetoric. It keeps him in the public eye. It's Stephen Miller and his like who
Love
just,
to push this kind of agenda.
yes, and it
Rile
got him a
everyone
job
up.
in the White House.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh,
That's the American dream.
How about Sarah Huckabee Sanders? How is she? What spin is she giving this? I hear she's leaving. I guess I just
It's about
wonder
time.
how can you go in front of it? You've got 10 lies a week, and somehow you have to go out there and spin them as truth. I wonder how she's spinning this.
I don't know how she's spinning the fact that he and Kirstjen Nielsen, the Secretary of Homeland Security, they both said, "Oh well, it's going to take Congress to change this
yeah.
order.
Our hands are tied.
Oh, we can't do anything about it." And Sanders comes out and, of course, repeats all that, and then suddenly he says, "Well, I'm going to sign something."
I think
Just
perhaps when
mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Fox News started complaining, I think maybe that's when he
Fox
decided to
News,
reverse
yeah, it
this.
was watching.
Has Hannity come out on anything?
Oh, I'm sure.
He's supposed to talk to him every night.
Yeah, I'm sure Hannity's fine with it. Don't you think? Or unless he sees it as bad for ratings. then-
Well, I don't know. It's
But so, what has this new order done? Questions remain. It's not clear when the order will take effect. This is the not separating families. When the order will take effect, or what will happen to the children who've already been separated. The White House is not responding for comments. Trump's executive order called for the DHS to detain parents and children together, but it could end up being flummoxed. That's a good word, by the courts, who've previously frowned on institutionalizing children when their parents break the law. An existing consent decree called the Flores Settlement bars the government from detaining undocumented minors and their parents for more than 20 days while their immigration cases are processed. So,
So if you can't keep the baby, how do you keep the mother?
Right. And so the Trump administration has encouraged Congress to overturn or modify the agreement to allow the government to detain family units together for more than 20 days. So that's what's going to be happening. And, we know there are FEMA camps everywhere that were being built apparently for us. But apparently, no, it's for asylum seekers and immigrants. Let's play a little music, shall we?
I know.
Callers, if you have any thoughts, please do give us a call, 415-663-8492. Sure, if there are supporters out there, we're willing to listen. We would
like to hear.
We'd love to hear what. Immigration law is certainly problematic. There are things that need to be ironed out.
So what's your opinion? What about this immigration? How are we going to handle that?
I don't know. Maybe if they're going to if all immigrants are bad. Well, they're not saying all immigrants are bad, are they? But
most of them.
We're cutting back on the ones. People from Central America are bad. Okay, we've got that. Anyone wearing a headscarf is bad. So we know that. So we're cutting back on the public. So I guess Europeans can still immigrate here, maybe. Mm.
Well, we know if you have $500,000, you can come.
You can always buy your way to the
or invest in
American But maybe
Kushner.
If are they going to have quotas on immigration? Maybe that's the way to go. What are they really pushing for?
I met a young man from Greece the other night. And he was enthusiastically telling me about how great this country is. Mm-hmm. And so the impression I got from him was that, sitting in his country, and I met a couple of German kids too, who had this really romantic fantasy about what America was like. And they were on a tour to go see it all and were kind of shocked to see some of the things they saw. But all the same, that idea of the American dream is that you can come to this country with nothing.
Right.
And you can make something of yourself financially, right? You can make your fortune here. Mm-hmm. And he said, this is true. I did it. Mm-hmm. I had nothing. And I, So that could be what some Americans are afraid of, is people coming here trying to take their jobs and their money. And
this is the beginning of a trend that is not going to go away. I personally think that it hasn't happened yet. Well, it has in certain parts of the world. We're in for mass migrations from the have-nots to the haves. Mm-hmm. The Africans are heading towards Europe. Either because of war, because of hunger. Mm-hmm. You've got Bangladesh. Environmentally, it's there's no question that as the oceans rise, you have Bangladesh. I mean, most of the countries that living around these delta regions. Yeah.
Well,
there's 300 million of them.
And as water dries up in certain places, everyone's going to move from there to somewhere else. Meanwhile, corporations are sucking aquifers dry everywhere.
So much gentrification happening, too, in all of our cities. And I don't know about you guys, but I keep hearing from people that they're losing their place to live. They're having to find somewhere else to live because rents are going up like crazy.
Yeah. Here and there.
Yeah, everywhere. Dr. Seuss, come save us.
Not just in the cities, also in tourist towns. But
yeah,
the government has no plan for reuniting the immigrant families it is tearing apart. There's a headline for you. That's great, isn't it?
So,
and in America, here's another. It's a New Yorker. In America, naturalized citizens, myself included, thank you so much, no longer have an assumption of permanence. They're looking. The Immigration Service has been directed to look into those people who have been who have become citizens, who have been declared American citizens, gone through citizenship, naturalization process, and investigate to see if any of them were, lied in their committed falsehoods.
Again, more expense.
And who are they? Who do you think they're going after? They're going after basically Indians.
Certainly not
all the
people that look like you, Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Paul, yeah,
exactly.
That's it. I think it's the hair and the beard.
It's if people who have chosen to come here, first of all, came here, made something of themselves, however slight, however great, whatever, and then decided, this is a great country, I want to stay here, I found the love of my life, whatever, all that, who decided to become Americans, who are proud to be Americans, unlike American, native-born Americans. Why are they proud? They have no right to be proud. They're just born here. That's all. They had nothing to do with it. On the other hand, naturalized citizens chose to come here and are proud to be Americans, usually, although recently I'm not so not so sure.
Yeah,
but
I think that's a topic too,
If citizens are no longer, that's no protection anymore, then... Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please? And keep it clean, please.
This is Sally.
Sally, keep it clean now.
I'll try. I'm pretty much fit to be tied over.
Yeah.
And...
What are you fiddling with there? Stop that a minute.
The chocolate came in the mail. Yes, I ordered chocolate in the mail.
Stop unwrapping it now.
It's the closest thing I can get to a narcotic. Okay. What I was thinking about, and I know you've actually already touched upon it, is the prison industrial complex.
Right.
So that is a system that has been firmly in place, sadly, for I don't actually know how long, how many decades, but that the privatization of prisons and the way that people are treated, particularly women in prison who have children, is really heinous. And, it's documented that they shackle women in childbirth and things of this nature. And so what is happening is, sadly, it's just more of the same, but being done to people who are trying to seek asylum.
Yeah. The helpless.
It's just that privatization engenders greed and power. The power mongering is always kind of there, but when you couple it with the greed of a private facility and the profit incentive.
Right.
Yeah, when the business model is to have more prisoners, then, boy,
wow.
is that dangerous?
Yeah.
It is. And, of course, we all know that war is good for the economy and so on. So,
so a war on migrant children is a good thing. It makes somebody money.
Children and migrant adults.
Yeah.
And not only people attempting to just get into a better situation, but people who are literally running for their lives.
Right.
And also, it just, I don't know. It's terribly, terribly, terribly upsetting, and it's just one very high-profile thing that is happening now that's sort of an overarching disintegration of all of our values. And what I think the really terrifying part for me is the incredible lack of empathy.
Yeah. Yeah, that article, there was a reporter was down in Texas, down near Brownsville. He'd been to the detention center there, and he was just asking, do you support Trump? Yep. How do you feel about the children being separated at the border? And he said, why should I care? I don't care about immigrant children. It's their parents' fault. Okay, well, the private prison, let's see, taxpayers have paid more than $1.5 billion in the past 4 years to private companies operating immigrant youth shelters. accused of serious lapses in care, including neglect and sexual and physical abuse, an investigation has found.
Well,
70,000 children, unaccompanied children, unaccompanied minors, crossed the southern border in 2014 that they know of and were taken, And among those are the children who disappeared from view. In New York, a Guatemalan boy was sexually assaulted by an older boy at a shelter in 2013 and was treated at a hospital. After he was reunited with his mother, she received a hospital bill for it.
Oh.
She didn't know anything about it until that happened, until she got the bill. There.
Oh.
So, yes, private prisons. Are you still there, Sally?
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, you are. Okay.
No, I know.
So a good point.
I'm demonstrating incredible strength in not opening the
chocolate.
The chocolate that is derived. I just think also that we have to be really vigilant about the far right-wing Christian coalition situation, because that's a very organized group, and they have not so far demonstrated any empathy or any real signs of Christian ethics.
There's a bit of a coup that's taking place. You had the Tea Party, and they always were a little on the fringe. And now that small group of people have the support of the larger government, and really their agenda is being implemented.
Mm-hmm.
But you have why the rest of the Republican Party isn't complaining. I think it's been the example. Who was this guy who Trump put some nasty words out about? Probably said he's not a good guy,
right?
And didn't get the nomination, didn't win the primary.
Right. True.
Just because Trump didn't like him.
Giant retail stores being converted into detention centers are coming from private for-profit prison companies who poured everything into Trump and his campaign, helped him raise $100 million for his campaign for the inauguration committee. Oh man!
God.
Because Obama was signed an order to phase out private prisons, and of course, oof. Yeah.
Yeah, this whole special interest thing and the economic incentive is really the scourge of capitalism. It's really a dark time.
Right.
So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you.
Chocolate's calling.
I mean, I have many thoughts, and many of them are based in extreme fear and anger.
Yeah, I hear you.
And a sense of, helplessness and weariness. And yet, this is just the beginning, I mean, we can't ease up on our vigilance, and we have to sort of stay focused. And I would like to kind of try and figure out, I think the way to really battle this is to try and we have to battle the voter suppression laws. We have to get people registered to vote.
Yeah, see if the system still works, eh?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
or at least one way to approach it, other than
Yeah, because it seems like even though so many people seem to be up in arms and upset about how things are going, the recent election we just had apparently the voter turnout still wasn't that good.
Well, we're gerrymandered. Not only are they doing this, but they've created this this gerrymandering where it's impossible. They've created an impossibility of getting a majority because of those machinations.
Sure, and that's just been thrown out by the Supreme Court. There's an article I meant to bring up about how they're turning away asylum seekers. Here's one, McAllen, Texas, right on the border. There's a bridge there. People were stacked on the bridge, sleeping there for 3, 4, 10 nights because they closed the port of entry, right? Forcing them to cross illegally between ports of entry, all right?
that too.
There are hundreds of accounts of asylum seekers who are told, "I'm sorry, we're full today. We can't process your case." So then they try to cross the river, and they cross illegally, and then they look
Thanks
for the
calling,
border.
Sally.
Oh, you're going? Oh,
yes.
Thank you, Sally.
Thanks.
Bye, thanks. They look for the border patrol once they've crossed to turn themselves in because they're going to ask for asylum.
Well, they're smuggling. They're charged with smuggling. Also, if you bring your child with you, you're a smuggler. Really,
can't win.
So
then,
now they're going to be prosecuted because they turned themselves in to the border patrol to ask for asylum.
Innocence.
So happy summer, everybody! It's summer
Thanks,
solstice.
Paul.
This is the longest day of the year.
Next Thursday, happiness.
Well, I was this week's topic was going to be about water and how that's going to be the next big terrible disruption. But maybe, can we look for something happy?
Little rainbows, butterflies,
Doggies, puppies. I don't know anything.
all that stuff.
Anyway. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Stephen.
Oh,
thank you to
caller.
everyone for calling. Oh well,
Are we out of time?
We are kind of out of time. Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
Paul, this is Dana.
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
Hey.
What I'm wondering is where are all these people who are manning these orphanages? Where did they come from?
I know they were terribly understaffed because they weren't expecting this big new thing at some of these detention centers. They had to scramble for staff, and of course they're not trained. That's why there's the no touching, no hugging rule.
Did they have to release? Excuse me, but did they have to release the pedophiles from prison to man these places?
They don't know if they're pedophiles or not.
I know, I've heard
there have
some
been lots of terrible,
really awful
cases.
Reports about ICE, as a matter of fact.
Oh, boy. Anyway, thank you, Dana. We're out of time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So let's talk for this week.
Oh, goody.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you,
callers.
Paul.
Yes,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
listeners. And, just to round it all out, I'm going to leave you with this. Thank you, and we'll be back next Thursday.